Welcome to ISE's FX Options Weekly Outlook, a weekly outlook on the US dollar versus the major currencies, hosted by Jason Ayres, a top industry instructor and founder of OptionSource.net. Learn to trade your views on the strength or weakness of the US dollar.
Hi there and welcome to the ISE FX Options Weekly Outlook for January 11th to the 17th. I'm your host Jason Ayres, founder and president of OptionSource.net, and as always, we're going to start with a look at our weekly U.S. dollar index. This is a great way to gain perspective as to how the U.S. dollar has been trading against a basket of currencies. Well, last week we were anticipating a play into that 84-85 focal zone based on the increase in momentum that we were seeing on our weekly chart. Now, as you can see here, we pulled back just to settle above that 81-82 focal zone once again. However, a bounce here is still likely to meet with some resistance back at that 84-85 box. Now, a break below that 81 level will open the window for another test of that 77 to 78 range. A quick look at our daily price chart reflects a great deal of action that has taken place within that 81-82 focal zone, lending further support to and credibility to its importance as a key support and resistance level. With that in mind, let's take a look at the first of our ISE FX options pair values, the CDD, the US versus the Canadian dollar. Now, last week we suggested that there was a high probability of a test of the 116 to 118 focal zone, which is where we are presently consolidating. Now, if the CDD holds at this level, any attempt to move higher is likely to meet with resistance once again in that 122-124 zone. Now, the 114 to 118 zone remains an important line in the sand if the U.S. dollar is to hold its ground against the Canadian. A break below 117.5 will likely yield a test of the lower range of that box at around the 114 level. Next up, the YUK, the US versus the Japanese yen, and after a strong rally into the 93-94 range, we find the YUK back down at the all-important 90-91 focal zone. Now, a bit of a bounce here is possible. However, I would be suspicious as momentum is currently supporting a continuation to the downside, which would likely yield a test of that 86 to 88 focal zone. If we do happen to find some support here once again, we would be looking for another test of that 93-94 range, which has become a very significant resistance level on the upside. Let's now take a look at the EUI, the US versus the Euro, and last week the 72-73 focal zone was established as an important level as we observed the pair value struggling to break above. Now, with a strengthening US dollar against the Euro, we finally saw a push into our 74-75 focal zone. Now, the EUI quickly rejected and now appears to be establishing support back down at that 72-73 focal zone. Continued strengthening will likely see a play for that 76-77 box illustrated here on our chart. If support is not held, a break below 72 opens the window for a test of the 69 to 70 focal zone. Well, we had a bit of a fake out in the BPX, the U.S. versus the British pound. Now, last week we anticipated that break above 69 would likely see a play into that 71-72 focal zone. Unfortunately, what we saw was perhaps the most aggressive of the pair value moves this week, which brought us down to be playing all the way into the lower focal zone identified between 64-65. Now, we're currently testing the upper range of this area, and given the strong close on Friday, we're open to the possibility of a test back into the 67-68 range. Although a bit of a retracement is to be expected after such an aggressive move, a break below 64 would likely yield a test all the way down to this lower support level identified between the 62 and 63 pair values. And finally, let's take a look at the AUX, the US versus the Australian dollar. After a dip below the 140 to 142 focal zone, we find the pair value back into this range. Now, if the AUX is unable to break above this level, we're looking for a test of the 134 to 136 focal zone. A consolidation within this box and a break above 142 opens the window for a test of the 146 to 148 focal zone. All right, let's take a look at a few key points. First of all, the test of the 84-85 focal zone in the US dollar index played out, but then pulled back to find support within the 81-82 range. As mentioned last week, we still need to see some technical repair work to be confident of a longer-term continuation to the upside. However, our daily chart is suggesting increasing momentum in that direction. The CDD and the AUX pulled back and are now respectively consolidating within key support levels. Daily momentum indicators are showing signs of a possible bullish retracement over the shorter time frame. The BPX is now testing the upper range of a support level, and a natural retracement is to be expected to the upside. Daily momentum supports further downside action. However, look for consolidation within the 64-65 focal zone. And finally, the YUK is testing its support at the 90-91 zone after the anticipated push into that 94-95 range. Expect a bounce in the short term. However, momentum is supporting further testing of the local focal zones. And folks, this has been your ISE-FX Options Outlook for the week of January 11th to the 17th. I'm your host, Jason Ayres, founder and president of OptionsSource.net. Thanks very much for joining me this week. We'll see you here next.
Thank you for participating in this week's session. Please join us again next week. For more information about Jason Ayres and to sign up for free FX Options trade alerts, just visit www.optionsource.net. To learn more about ISE-FX Options, including our weekly webinar series, visit us at www.ise.com/fx. ISE-FX Options can easily be traded through all options-enabled brokerage accounts. These exchange-listed securities are cash-settled in U.S. dollars and have a European-style exercise.